All right, we're at video number 13. Let's see what we can work on with these arms. One of the ways to do arms is to make them, and you can combine styles, but I like to make them more or less flat plane, and then I'll add details to them. Flat plane means I'm going to take the flat, and every corner I'm going to cut it and make two corners. I had a hard edge right here. If I cut it, I'll have a hard edge on one side and a hard edge on the other. Basically what you want is for this to start as a square block, square arm, and then you round it. Well, you don't have to necessarily round it, but you can round it without rounding it. In other words, I can take a chip off here, not a chip, I can take a slice off here and go straight down into where the elbow is. Round it a little bit. I'll do the same thing on the back side. I'll do the same thing on this part of the arm. And I'll do the same thing here. Okay. Now if I work on getting rid of all of those corners, knowing that every time I cut a corner, I create two more, because I've created this corner and that corner. And now when I cut this one, I'm going to create a corner and a corner. But if I do that enough, that's how you round things. Take off the sharp edges. And if you can take off enough of those sharp edges, eventually the arm starts to look a little more rounded. So I take off that corner. And I take off this corner. And pretty soon it's starting to look like the arm's rounded, but it's not. It really isn't in terms of what you're doing in the wood. It is, but it isn't. Looks like it. And then at the top, we'll angle toward the head. Still got some cleanup to do. We've got to clean up the top of it. But that arm is kind of looking like it's rounded. Add a little bit of detail. Put that crease in the arm. Straight in. Looks like that shirt's got a little crease in it. A lot of people will do another one on the bottom and come up from the top. And then another one up here and come up from the outside. Looks like he's got a little bit of crease in the arm. Come back in here. Deepen that. Take those little chips out of there, little slivers. Do the same thing on the bottom. You don't need to take out much. You just need to take out a little bit to make it look like it's indented. Sets it back in there. I want to show you something I found. I met a guy when I went to John C. Campbell. I went to John C. Campbell School of Folk Art School down in North Carolina. And there was a fellow down there that had a neat little tool that he had made just for that. And this is what that is. The guy's name is Frank Boyd. I think he's teaching down there now. But it basically is a flat on the back and then two sides that come together and plunge in. And what Frank does is he puts that right in here, right in where that elbow goes. This doesn't even have to be sharp, but it's got to be sharp enough to separate the wood, because you're not cutting, you're just separating. Put that in there and move it up and down and back and forth. And watch what happens. See how that arm looks like it goes way back in there? It looks like you've cut a slice out of there without having to cut a slice out of there. All you've done is widen that aperture or that hole back and forth, side to side, and you've separated that arm slightly down in the crook of that elbow. And that's what happens with elbows. We do the same thing on the other part of the arm. We can go up and down, side, side, and it extends it just a little bit. I didn't go real deep on that, but anyway, this is a neat little tool. I got two of them that I made. Basically, if you look at it, it's a flat tool. It has an angle. It's brought up to an angle. And then this side plunges and that side plunges. So basically it has a bevel right here that bevels away on both sides, so you can get in there. You can do it this way, you can flip it over for the other side, but it's a neat little tool that didn't cost much. Anyway, that was an aside that I really didn't intend on going down, but anyway, we're still trying to get to where we want to go. And the hat is getting in the way of back here, because if you look at that head, it's pretty hefty from front to back. So we're working on the arms, and I'm going to continue working on that arm, but eventually we want to come back up here and start working on the shoulder, because the shoulders don't look right yet because we haven't really worked on them. Anyway, let's do that over here with the arm. Cut a piece, another one. We're going to start, we're working on rounding it a little bit. We're going to do it on the back, cut some off those two sides that we cut, and eventually if you make enough cuts up and down that arm starts to look rounded. Here on the bottom we got to worry about it, because if you'll notice the grain goes up this way, so if I carve this way it's going to break that grain off. If I carve this way out here at this elbow, it's going to pop off. So I've got to carve this way here and that way there. Otherwise I'm gonna lose some pieces of wood that I don't want. So if I go straight up that way, you see how I can do that without it cutting off. And if I go down this way, you can see how I can do that without cutting off the elbow. Again, every time we cut off a corner, we make two more. We do it enough times and we can round what we want, but it's a way to get things rounded that you need. Okay, we'll go back in here and we'll deepen that cut just a little bit. Slice. And down here. Take our funky little tool down in there, back and forth, left and right. Flip it over the other side, up and down, back and forth. Don't pry too much, that end is thin. Look how that arm looks like it indents back in there. Looks like you got a hole in the elbow, and that's what you wanted to do. That's what you was looking for, okay? Kind of trim up these shoulders a little bit. We don't want them sticking out making him look like Schwarzenegger. Although there's nothing wrong with looking like that if that's what you're aiming for. Let's just give it back a little bit more. Okay. All right. I drew in that bandana. Now what I want to do is draw it in some more. So I'm going to bring that across, and you can see how much of that shoulder I'm going to have to take off. I've done it over here. So I've got the bandana coming back here. I haven't done it over here because I've indented more here than here. That's easily fixed. This is going to come right around to there. And that's going to be my bandana. I use a small V tool to cut that in, a smaller V tool. Not a real small one. And cut around to where the tails are, the knot in the tails. Okay. Outline this part of the neckerchief as well. Down to that point, because that's where this is the part of the bandana that's tucked under the other piece. And then bring this other one up here and have it overlap like that. There's the rest of it cut in there. We'll trim that off. We'll trim that line off. Bring that, follow that right up here. And we'll follow that around. Okay, so now let's outline that bandana. Stop cut right there. Take off just a little bit to make it stick out a little bit more. Doesn't have to stick out much. We're going to trim it up a little bit anyway, because you don't have a square bandana. But anyway, so for those of you that are following along and not doing a cowboy, do a shirt where you have a collared shirt in here. Or if you don't want a collared shirt, do it as a pullover shirt with a slight ribbed collar around it. There's no end to how you can do this. As Bob Ross says, it's your happy little painting. We're not painting, we're carving. But it's your happy little carving. If that's what you want to do, then no one's going to tell you, no one should tell you how to do your own carving. It's your carving. You do it the way you want. Unless you're doing it for a commission, and then somebody's making you dance to that tune because you're doing it for them. Nothing wrong with that. I've done a lot of commissions over my lifetime, over my years of doing carving. Nothing wrong with that. Not a thing. In fact, I've got a lot of commissions where people buy, they'll say, I want a cowboy, and then they'll let me figure out what I want to do. And that's kind of nice. When you get to that point, if you're selling carvings, when you get to that point where people buy what you already do, or they like what you do and say, I want one of these, that's a nice feeling. It means you're validated now as an artist because people want what you do. They don't want to tell you what to do. They like what you're doing. That's a nice feeling. I did a cowboy and a Santa, an off-work Santa. And I posted them on Facebook, and a local Santa impersonator around here called me up and said, I want both of those for Christmas. And so I was able to make a good sale because he liked what I did. And, you know, that's the validation of being an artist. If you paint a picture, if you do a sculpture, if you make jewelry, doesn't matter what you do, when the buying public, when your fans, when your customers like what you're doing, that is an incredibly wonderful feeling as an artist, knowing that somebody likes what you're doing and wants to pay your price for it. That there is a small token of chasing as an artist. You're trying to make a living, or you're trying to make a sale, or you're trying to just get art into people's hands. That's a good feeling. My wife and I have bought a lot of art over the years. Our walls are filled with paintings that we like. And it's nice to go back and buy a couple more from somebody you really enjoy. We've got a couple of artists here in the valley we live in that are just fantastic, and we own several of theirs and we really enjoy them. I like the way this guy's turning out. I really do. I haven't done much back here. I need to angle this back in there because now we've got this bandana coming in here. So we're going to have to angle in somewhat. Although I still want to leave room right in here, I can still take off a little bit so I can angle that back into the head. Right now we're angling it into the hair. We can come back and play around with that a little bit more. But anyway, we got the body going in the right direction. Got him almost, well, I don't want to say almost done because he's certainly not done. We've got a lot of cleanup to do and a lot of work that needs to be done. But come back with me. We're going to work on this head a little bit. We just about shaped his legs where we want. In fact, he looks a little bow-legged cowboy, but we'll work on his backside, and we'll work on his front side. We'll work on the belly. The next thing we're going to do is make sure we get this head, because some of this has got to go back and some of this has got to go back because we want to leave some space in there. So we're at 14 minutes, and I'm going to call this in good at video number 13. I'll see you at 14. Have a good day.